Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. It has been another busy day for me. These days, every day seems to be a busy day, even weekends. There's so much happening in the mining business, and I've got so much to talk about. And earlier today, I've got the front page of a interview that I did with Stefan Sklepowicz and Denny Laviolette from Kirkland Lake Discoveries Corp. And I'm really proud of this interview for a couple of reasons. One of those is that we did it's the longest interview I've ever done. It lasted 2 hours, but it's full of great information. Not only did we do a really good job of telling the story of what Kirkland Lake Discoveries is doing on a project that I'm really bullish on. But Denny is a brilliant geologist, and he did a wonderful job talking about, you know, how the way he talks, it's in a way that enables investors to understand geology and the business of treasure hunting. And I always enjoy talking to Denny. This is the second interview I've done with him, and he's the non-executive chairman of Kirkland Lake Discoveries, and Stefan Sklepowicz is the CEO, and they've got a great project near Kirkland Lake, Ontario. And they're drilling it. They got a bunch of assay results coming out. They just got a bunch of money thrown at them so that they can keep on drilling once they get these assay results in. And so I really encourage you to, whether you're interested in Kirkland Lake Discoveries or not, and I hope you are, because I'm tremendously excited about it. But also, it's worth tuning in and watching because Denny drops a lot of great information that's useful for investors looking in any exploration company. So I wanted to promote that. Might as well look at their stock while we're at it. Let me fix my screen up a little bit here. Oops, I did the wrong thing. I made my box a little bit bigger than I had hoped for. Let me see if I can fix this. There we go. Okay, so uh, um, Kirkland Lake Discoveries was up 29.17% today, or 7 cents a share to 31 cents. That still only gives the company a valuation of about $30 million Canadian. But what they're looking for is, we talked about its similarities to LaRonde, which is a phenomenal mine that really was a company maker for Agnico Eagle, one of my top, well, my favorite major gold miner. And so we talked about all that, and yet this company's just emerging. It went through a golden cross here in late July. Since then, it's continuously stayed above the 50-day moving average. The 50-day moving average is moving up at a very bullish trajectory. And with all the results that they have coming out, I'm very optimistic about what they have and what they could announce. And so stay tuned for more from Kirkland Lake Discoveries. All right, now I'm going to move to McEwen Mining. And McEwen had, our McEwen Inc. Sorry, I always, they changed their name from McEwen Mining to McEwen Inc. And one of these days I'm going to remember to say it properly. So, I'm always a person who talks about value propositions and doing your homework. And although this news was not probably as well appreciated as I think it is very important news. And what they talked about is IFC supports McEwen Copper through key collaboration towards sustainable financing for Los Azules. Now, Los Azules is one of the world's top undeveloped copper mines in the world. It's in the top 10 for undeveloped copper projects in development. and it also falls in the lowest cost quartile for undeveloped copper mines. So it's what the world needs. We need more copper development projects in the pipeline because the current production isn't going to be what's needed going forward. You look at electric vehicles, you look at artificial intelligence, you look at robots, you look at, just basic infrastructure in developed economies that are relying on really old power grids that can't support these new industries that are upcoming. And we need more copper mines. We need more copper mining today, and we need a lot more in the pipeline. And this is exactly the kind of project that Los Azules is. And so they talked about the IFC, which is a member of the World Bank Group, and Copper, a subsidiary of McEwen Inc., have signed a collaboration agreement to support aligning the Los Azules copper project with IFC's environmental, social, and governance standards for potential future debt and equity financing, an important milestone in McEwen Copper's broader financing strategy for the project. Now, this is what I think is really important to pay attention to. Um, they're doing a feasibility study. So not long after a feasibility study, companies start looking for the money to uh, to build the mine, and that feasibility study is scheduled to be coming out in October sometime. And so, not too far from now. And so, quickly after that, people are going to be asking about financing. Well, the World Bank is a great place to be looking for financing. And if you get that green light from the World Bank, well, it makes your life a lot easier when it comes to financing. So, they give you some details about the Los Azules project, which I encourage you to read over. They talk about the agreement emphasizes integrating IFC's performance standards on environmental and social sustainability into Los Azules' development. This initiative is intended to de-risk the project, align it with the criteria required for international investors, and support Argentina's mining sector by promoting greater transparency, reduced carbon emissions, and community benefits. IFC's senior country manager for Argentina, Manuela Adel, stated, and I quote, "We are pleased to be collaborating with McEwen Copper on the Los Azules project to help it align with IFC's performance standards and lay the ground for international project financing. Through this project, IFC also seeks to encourage greater investment in Argentina's mining sector and support its sustainable development. The World Bank Group is supporting Argentina to unlock its mining and metals industry potential in a sustainable way, maximize positive impacts for the country, create jobs, and support local economic development, including FX revenues." Then Rob McEwen, who's the chief owner of McEwen Inc., stated, and I quote, "This IFC collaboration is a game changer for Los Azules. It will help us align with top tier sustainability standards while paving the way for IFC as a potential lead lender and equity partner, driving value for shareholders in Argentina alike," end quote. Rob is a pretty straight shooting guy, and when he starts talking about what he's talking about in that quote, I think you should pay attention. I am. Michael Medding, who's the VP and General Manager of McEwen Copper, he added, and I quote, "We're excited to collaborate with IFC's experts to embed IFC's performance standards into our design and operations. This proactive ESG integration, paired with a solid financing framework, bolsters Los Azules' path to success and elevates its appeal to global investors," end quote. So I think, what I quoted, what I talked about, speaks volumes about the Los Azules project. And I often talk about McEwen Inc. and I use it as a example of tremendous value proposition. And so how I look at that is I look at their current gold operations and I look and I compare that to other gold mines on a relative basis. And I'm not going to go into it all today, but bottom line is that I believe that they are undervalued just for their copper or for their gold mining operations alone. They've got a lot of on the go on their gold operations. They've got a new mine being under construction and going into production. They've got the plans to increase their production and bring down their cost. So on all the key factors that I look at in a junior gold miner, it ticks all the boxes. And again, I believe that the company is undervalued just for that alone, which by extension means that I think you're getting the copper asset for next to nothing. And yet it's a very valuable copper project. McEwen Inc. owns 46% of it. Rio Tinto's Newton Ventures owns, I think, about 15 or so percent. Stellantis, which is one of the world's largest car manufacturers, owns about 17% of it. Don't quote me on those. Go and do your homework and you can find the actual numbers. And then Rob McEwen himself owns around 12%, 12 or 13% of it. So in those four entities, they own about 96% or more, 98% of McEwen Copper. And there is to unlock the value of that, one of the things that's on the table is the idea of taking McEwen Copper public on the New York Stock Exchange. I'm really excited about that prospect because one of the issues that they currently face is how do you value inside of McEwen Inc., McEwen Copper? It's called price discovery. And a great way to get price discovery would be for it to be publicly trading on the New York Stock Exchange. And that is a very exciting prospect because if you look at, generalist investors in the United States are starting to look at gold companies, at silver companies, at copper companies, and they want stocks that are trading in on the New York Stock Exchange to invest in those metals through those companies. And so the prospect of a tightly held McEwen Copper going public on the New York Stock Exchange would mean that there would be a very low supply of stock for investors that want to be part of a world-class copper development company. And so bottom line is, I think, again, it's one of the most attractive value propositions that I follow closely. And yet they have a lot of catalysts upcoming to unlock. I mean, this came out of left field. The International Finance Corporation, that's part of the World Bank, sort of came out of left field. And that's what happens with great projects, folks. They surprise you where you don't expect surprises to happen. So, company has a lot of catalysts going forward on as a junior gold miner and with the development of their Los Azules project that is 100% owned by McEwen Copper. And yeah, I think you should do your homework on McEwen Inc. because I think it offers a tremendous value proposition if you're interested in gold, silver, and copper. And that's the McEwen Inc. story. Let's quickly look at their stock chart, and I'll give you a little insight into why I say that this was not paid attention to as much as it should have been. Today, they're down 1.99%, or so let's say 2% by 41 cents to $20.21. this was really important information. This was really important news. And I think the market is kind of sleeping on it. Now, they've had a great golden cross here. They actually broke through their 50-day moving average back in May. And since then, the stock has continuously traded above the 50-day moving average. It only traded below it for about 3 days and just dipped slightly below it. And then it's been off to the races again ever since. And so I have a lot of good things to say about the company and the stock. Look at this cup and handle. You look at the high side, the left side of the cup, which is at about 15, let's say $16. Then it formed a cup, and now it formed the right side of the handle or the cup. And I always pay attention to how much a stock goes above the left side of the cup when it's coming up the right side of the cup, because what that all tends to happen is that the handle, sometimes the handle can go down a lot and take a long time to form before you see the breakout. But when they go above the right side of the cup goes above the left side of the cup, usually the handle is very short-lived, very mild in its pullback, and then it's off to the races. And that's exactly what we've seen in McEwen Inc.'s stock performance of late. And now we're getting at multiple year highs. I started picking them down here at about $4 a share. So it's been a very successful pick for me, but I think that it still offers a tremendous value proposition. So do your homework on McEwen Inc. All right. Next up is Orogen Royalties. Now, Orogen Royalties is a very interesting company to me. I don't follow very many royalty companies. In fact, this is the only royalty company that I've ever talked about on my shows. Part of the reason that I follow it so closely is I am very good friends with the CEO of the company, Patty Nickel. Patty and I kind of cut our teeth together in the mining business. We worked together on with a large geological consulting firm, and he and I were really fortunate to have been mentored by a great group of geoscientists, including his uncle, Bob Darney, who's sadly no longer with us, but he was one of my great mentors in geology and was for Patty as well. And even though Patty and I are not geologists, we have a very long history of being in the exploration business. And why I've paid attention to Orogen over the years is because they they're kind of a unique um, uh, royalty company. Most royalty companies, they buy their royalties from mines, and a lot of them have a significant amount of debt. What Royalties does differently is they originate, that's where the origin comes from, their own projects, and then they keep a royalty on them and they farm them out to other companies. Now, one of those big successes was they had a royalty on the silicon discovery that is being developed by Anglo in Nevada. And they sold that and they made their shareholders a bunch of money just recently, like in the last 4 or 5 months. And then they spun everything out in that they had originated to keep their royalties, and they're kind of trying to do it again. And so they came out with this news release, Orogen Royalties Exploration Stage Project and Royalty Update. So they gave you the highlights, which is that they have up to 30,000 meters of drilling in 7 partner-funded programs in Nevada, British Columbia, Colombia, and Western Kenya, where Orogen holds projects or royalty interests. Over 3 million in generative or exploration for copper and gold targets throughout Western United States and Canada, with alliance partners Altius Minerals, another very large royalty company, Triple Flag Precious Metals, South 32, and BHP Explore. Seven projects under option to industry partners and three projects sold year to date. One of those, of course, being the Silicon project. Orogen will host its second annual Project Generator Day on October the 8th, showcasing recently generated projects. Patty Nickel, who's the CEO of Orogen, commented, and I quote, "This has been one of the busiest years in Orogen history for project level and generative exploration activities. In addition to the sale of the Arthur Gold royalty in July, we have profitably created three new royalties through project sales, created three exploration alliances with senior industry partners, and generated several new projects in Western USA and Canada. We look forward to our Project Generator Day, October 8th, 2025, to showcase our new exploration opportunities." End quote. Old Patty, he's a pretty good news quote maker there, and he really tells the story very succinctly and very well. Some of their key projects are their MPD South Copper Gold Porphyry project that's being developed by Kodiak Copper. Um, Here's some of their recent results. This Highway 37 project has me very interested. Kingfisher is drilling that project and coming back with some very encouraging results. And I'm paying a lot of attention to Kingfisher these days for that Highway 37 project. They talk about the Maggie Creek Gold Project in Nevada, uh, Kelt's epithermal gold project in Nevada with Eminent Gold. That one was the first one was with Nevada Gold Mines. That's a joint venture with Gold Barrick and Newmont. Uh, Camelot Porphyry Copper Gold Project is optioned out to Prospect Ridge Resources, La Rica in Colombia. This is a sleeper, folks. I talked to Patty about this project, and this one has me very excited. And I want to see more on that La Rica. And then Jake Creek Epithermal Gold Project that's optioned out to Headwater Gold. Headwater Gold is run by a really solid team of serious exploration people, and I like what I hear there. Then they talk about their Project Generator Day, so they're going to give people updates on all that. They give you a map here with their various projects. And so Orogen Royalties, it's the only royalty company that I follow closely and I've ever talked about on my show. Let's have a look at their stock chart, OGN for Orogen Royalties. And as you can see here, they sold that their Silicon project and made their shareholders a bunch of money, and it's onwards and upwards from there. They're actually trading at a multi-year high, the all-time high, I think it is actually. And so a lot of good things happening with Orogen Royalties. They went through their golden cross back in late 2022. Their 50-day moving average is moving up quite nicely. It's got a nice little curl to it right here, a nice little hook to it right here. That's another one you wanted to do your homework on and check out. Call my buddy Patty Nickel. Tell him I said hello. Uh, all right. Here's Aztec Minerals. So I just talked yesterday about their, or did I talk about it? Let me see. I might not have even talked about it. Well, I'll use this opportunity to talk about it because they had two news releases out. Let's talk about the first one. Aztec drills 500. I did talk about this. I remember the 556 grams per ton of silver and 17 grams per ton of gold over 3 meters. So, yes, I talked about it on yesterday's show. And then today, they announced that they have entered into a $5 million bought deal private placement of common shares. So they're going to be raising $5 million, and this is to advance the project. And I don't blame them because they're going to want to use that money wisely and get after that super high grade that they hit in the news release that I talked about yesterday. So let's take a look at their stock. Let's see how it reacted to the news. Reacted quite nicely. It was up 3.64% or 1 cent a share to 28 cents. Went through a golden cross here as they were starting the drilling, has had a nice breakout on these results. And now that they can get the cash in to do a whole bunch more drilling, I'm really optimistic about this. I love high grade silver and high grade gold combination. And I know how hard they are to find, and Aztec Minerals has one, and I think you want to take a good look at Aztec. Okay, so here's one I've never talked about before, but their news today got my attention. Kingsmen intersects 1,740 grams per ton of silver equivalent over zero point 0.7 meters in its first drill program at Los Coloradas Silver Project in Chihuahua, Mexico. Um, this is their first assay from hole LC 25-010 that intersected significant mineralization. The hole was drilled as part of the recently completed 12-hole or 3,227-meter drill program on their 100% owned Los Coloradas Silver Project in the Parral mining district of central Mexican Silver Belt, Chihuahua, Mexico. Look at these grades, 1,000 grams per ton silver equivalent over 1.45 meters from from 190.25 meters to 191.70, including 1,742 silver grams per ton silver equivalent over 0.70 meters from 190.85 to 191.55. Now, I know a lot about epithermal veins because I live in Mexico, and Mexico has produced about 25% of the silver that's ever been produced in the history of mankind. And it comes from these kind of epithermal veins. They can be anywhere from a meter to 5 meters. They pinch and swell along strike and at depth. And so, but when you see these kind of grades, that's where you want to start paying a lot of attention. They also talked about wide mineralized zone, 138 grams per ton of silver equivalent over 13.35 meters from 178.35 to 191.70. So there again, folks, this is pinching and swelling of these veins at depth, and that's what they're known to do. Drilled previously untested areas below historic Asarco mining, which was mining from 1943 to 1952. Shallow near surface mineralization, intercept from only 125 meters of depth. Multiple mineralization styles, including massive sulfides. Interesting. Strong pathfinder elements, including antimony, indium, bismuth, indicate larger system. These are pathfinder minerals that lead you towards what you're looking for, folks. That's why they highlighted that. Significant discovery potential, less than 5% of property explored. 8.5 square kilometers consolidated historic mining district. Multiple untested structures and veins located in Mexico's prolific Parral Silver District. Their president, Scott Emerson, commented, and I quote, "Our first hole confirms our thesis to drill below historic mining areas and has demonstrated the two essential elements of both grade and scale. Since the company's inception, our approach has been laser focused on creating sustainable value for our stakeholders. HL whole LC-25-010 delivered high-grade, shallow silver mineralization in the mine zone of the Soledad structure, demonstrating the potential for the discovery of additional high-grade mineralization in this area. The company is awaiting assays from 11 additional holes and targets that have been drilled as part of this initial drill program. With its growing understanding of the geochemistry and controls on the mineralization, and less than 5% of the project area covered with comprehensive exploration work, the property remains underexplored. Kingsman has only just begun to unlock the true potential of this high-grade silver system, end quote. Then they give you some details about the project, the past mining by Asarco in the 1943 to 1950 period. Now, bear in mind, folks, that the price of silver was a fraction of where it is now. So getting back into this kind of a project is really exciting. I'm interested in the sulfidation of this. They talk about the pathfinders. That's really good. Um, and alteration. So when the fluids that carry the metals with them interacts with the country rock, it chemically alters that, and that's why alteration is so important. And even when you're drilling into it, you can see this alteration prior to hitting the vein, and sometimes you go out of it and you can keep drilling a little bit further, and that's how some blind veins are found. And so that's really interesting. Um, uh, Microfaulting, multi-cracking, fracture system. They give you the rundown of all the minerals that they tested for, the whole location. So, okay, here's a perfect example of a cluster of veins, which is what these fields are all about. Where you find one, you often find many. And as you can see, some of these have never ever been drilled, and they come to surface, and that's what you're seeing here in red. But a lot of times, not far from these, you can find more blind veins, so that's very exciting. Here they show you some of the good-looking drill core. Uh, and so, yeah, that is the story from Kingsmen Resources. I'm going to try and reach out to Scott Emerson and see if I can get him on an interview, because this looks like a very exciting story that I want to learn more about and I want my audience to learn more about. But it's what I do on a daily basis when I'm looking for good stories to talk about. And these guys are off to a very interesting project. Let's have a look at their stock before I move on. KNG is their stock symbol. They trade on the venture. Kingsman Resources is their name. Had a golden cross in 2024. The trajectory of the 50-day moving average is very bullish. They were up 27.69% today, or 36 cents a share to $1.66. Now, part of that is because they don't have very much stock out. So when you don't have very much stock out, there's a limited supply. And when you deliver those kind of results, you tend to get a lot of interest. So, yeah, a lot of great things to say about Kingsman. Do your homework on Kingsman, and I'll try to get them on for an interview. All right, let's talk about gold before I close the show. Um, Great breakout here. And even I often say you can learn a lot about a trend from the days, the red days or the down days, as you can from the green days or the up days. And as you notice, since it's been making this breakout above the 50-day moving average, it has had a significant more uh, up days than down days, and the down days are very mild. And I think both gold and silver, who are tracking the same kind of action, look at this important breakout happened right around the same time, and look at how silver has blasted off with very few red days, many green days, and the red days are pretty mild, and it doesn't take very long. You can't really hold it down very much. And what I think both silver and gold are sniffing out is that stagflation is coming. Stagflation is very bullish for both gold and silver and bearish for the US dollar. And it's no coincidence that these breakouts happened for both gold and silver right around the time that the Federal Reserve had their meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And that's when Powell sort of played his cards or showed his cards that they were going to cut interest rates. And now they have cut interest rates. And basically, they're throwing inflation under the bus to try to support the implosion of the jobs market, which is very negative for the economy. So, there, in a nutshell, is why the argument for stagflation that I think that both gold and silver and the precious metals stocks are sniffing out is that stagflation is coming. And I try to warn people about these things well ahead of them happening. And even though you're seeing real stagflationary problems in the real economy, not a lot of people are talking about stagflation. And I think that's going to continue. The volume is going to continue to go up to the point that everybody from Wall Street to Main Street, and not just Wall Street, Main Street, USA, but Main Street worldwide, are going to start talking about stagflation. Now, let's look at the US dollar. And I've been predicting that as it was basing here in a bear market, that the next move was for it to dip below the 50-day moving average. And I think what we're going to start to see is action like this. It topped out in at 110 on the index in early 2025 and has started the year with its worst 6 month performance in the last 50 years. It stayed consistently below the 50-day moving average until about, let's say, July, end of July. It had a slight rally above the 50-day moving average. Then it traded right at the 50-day moving average. And then I predicted that it would break below the 50-day moving average, which it has done. And I think you're going to see a lot more downside on the US dollar now that the Federal Reserve is throwing the inflation under the bus to try to support the imploding jobs market, which is very negative for economic growth. And so I think that the stagflation is upon us and it's only going to get worse. And the Federal Reserve, with their actions, are only going to make it worse because, like I said, when they cut interest rates, they're throwing inflation under the bus. And they're doing that while it's still a percent above their target rate. Now they've been saying target is going to be 2 years to 2%, and they've been saying that for 4 or 5 years now. So they're not doing a very good job with inflation, and now they're about to make inflation take off again. And so they don't have any tools to fight stagflation. They can fight one or the other. They can fight inflation with higher interest rates, or they can help the economy stimulus with lower interest rates. But if you lower the interest rates, you also juice up the inflation. So this is why they have no tools for stagflation. It's why the Federal Reserve does every back-bending thing they can do to not talk about it. But even in the way that they talk about it without talking about it, they're telling you that they're concerned about stagflation. They don't say it, but what they do say is that they see the 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 problem with the jobs market needs support. And if the jobs market is in trouble, that means the economy is in trouble as well. And so how much will they? I don't think, I think that this rally since the Fed decided to cut interest rates is counterintuitive. And I think the reason that it's trading in a counterintuitive fashion is because the traders are believing that it's sort of going to be, well, they'll probably cut three times a quarter percent, and that will be it. I don't think the way that this jobs market is imploding, I don't think it's going to be, I think if anything, they're going to have to go back towards the free money era. And if they go back towards free money era, the inflation is going to go through the roof. Even in their government statistics that understate the inflation and overstate the jobs market, it's going to look bad. And in the real economy, it's going to look even worse. And, that's why I bang the drum on these things, folks, is because you as an investor can protect yourself against this kind of stuff. How do you protect yourself? By owning gold, silver, and the precious metal stocks. On that note, I'm going to tell you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. Have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.